Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the Cyber Gizmo, I'm going to be looking at a device that I received from iStorage. This is the DatAshur PRO+C. They sent it to me because of a comment I made when I was looking at this drive, which is this is the Data Pro 2. It is a USB-A connector. So they sent me that one because I made a comment that, yeah, security is always a little slower. So they wanted me to take a look at this one to see what kind of differences I would see in performance. This one uses USB-C. As you can, so let's dive in. Let's talk about this a little bit. So the first thing I want to do is start out with a quote, as I always do, is this one's from Alan Turing. He said, "Sometimes it is the people who no one imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine. It's always the ones you least expect are the ones that come up with the best ideas." Started just to review. If you're interested in more in-depth information on these standards, you can see my video that I did on eCrypt FS and what I did about it. And in there, I talk about the different standards. So if you're more interested in a deep dive, go over there and check that one out. The first standard that we're going to need to learn about is Fips 197. If you've seen the other video, then this is a review. If you haven't, then yeah, this is probably the first time maybe you've heard of these. So this particular standard was established by the National Institute for Standards and Technology back in 2001. It defines the advanced encryption standard, or the one that we know of as AES. That particular standard was withdrawn on May the 9th of this year, mainly because it needed to be updated. There's some other things that have been added to it. And so that was superseded by this one, which is Fips 197 UPD1. So yeah, that was introduced on the same date, May the 9th, 2023. It is the one that is currently in force at the time that I'm making this. This is the other standard that you need to be aware of, and that's Fips 140-3. That is a NIST standard which defines the security requirements for cryptographic modules. In other words, that covers devices. So this is the DatAshur, and this is it is currently pending a Fips 140-3 certification. So those take time. This is a fairly new device. And so that one was introduced on March the 22nd, 2019. It's still in force, and testing can be scheduled for Fips 140-3. The other one is one that is called officially AES XTS, but sometimes you'll see it flipped as XTS AES. That is not a NIST standard. That is an IEEE standard, and it was meant to solve the problem of encrypting stored data without incurring data expansion due to that encryption. A lot of times when you're encrypting binary data, it can at maximum double in size because of the way the encryption algorithms work. So the XTS was added on to AES in order to prevent that problem from happening. So you will see that standard issued as either AES XTS 128-bit or 256-bit. So, well, actually, it's the XTS part is either 128 or 256. The AES is the same, 128 or 256. Usually when you see XTX AES or AES XTS, you will see them either 256 or 512. There is one that's in the middle that's a 384, but to be honest, I have not run into that. Maybe you have, where they take 128 of one and 256 of the other, and combine them to make a 384-bit. But usually it's either 256 AES XTS or it's 512. It just depends on how much of what's the bit length for the individual encryption mechanisms. So with all that, let's talk about this for a moment. So this is it's a USB-C. It meets the standard for USB 3.2 Gen 1. There is also an adapter that's included if you purchase one of these, which is a USB Type-C to USB Type-A. So if you need to put that in a machine that does not have a USB Type-C connector, you can still use the device. This has a pin size of between 8 and 15 digits. Now, you can set this to accept alphanumeric as well, and you'll notice that maybe you don't know, but if you've had one of the old phones from way back, this uses a similar methodology for getting the alphabetic characters off of the keyboard. Yeah, the encryption on this is AES XTS 256. It is hardware encryption. This does not use your CPU to do the encryption, decryption, or the management of the keys. It's all done on the device, so this will not take any cycles away from your machine. This also has a wear-resistant keypad, in that if you have an older security system at your house that uses a keypad, you may have noticed that I don't know how often you change your PIN code, but I change mine frequently. But you may find that if you haven't changed yours in a while, that the particular keys that you use all the time are worn. They may have a dip in them. The numbers that are over top of the key may be faded, whereas the others are fine, or they might have some dirt on them or whatever. But yeah, you might find that. And this has a coating over the keys to prevent that from happening. So it will allow the keys to wear longer without showing what your pin is. Also, it won't show fingerprints either. So it's very hard to pick that up as well. So there's a hardware protection. All the components in this are covered with a super tough epoxy resin. So if you try to heat it up, you'll destroy the board. If you try to pry it up, you destroy the board. So yeah, you're good luck. Trying to get past that. Other protections on the device is it also has water, dust, and shock resistance. I believe that's IP6 is the level, so that's 1.5 meters for 30 minutes submersion in water. It also is crush proof. They have tested this by running it over with a 2.7 ton vehicle to see if it would crush the casing, and it does not. I remember one time at work, when I was working for Raytheon, I was walking through the parking lot and noticed that someone had either dropped intentionally or dropped unintentionally a USB stick that had been run over several times, and it looked like it was pretty bad. I picked it up and I turned it into security. What a good way to be able to interject a virus into an organization. So this has two different PIN numbers that you can create for it. One is an admin PIN, which is used to be able to change settings on the device. You can still access data with it. There's also a user PIN that you can create as well. So the user PIN doesn't allow them to change settings on the device, obviously, including a user can't change their PIN once it's set. They can't reset the device and all that stuff. So, yeah. However, there is a way to reset the device if you are unsuccessful entering your PIN number 10 times in a row. This device will do a factory reset. It will erase all the pins, all the settings back to factory defaults, and it will clean off all of the data that's on the drive. So you get it back like you got it, empty. So yeah, You have to start over and format it and all that stuff. Performance of this is rated at 310 megabytes per second, and that's read speed, and 246 megabytes per second write. So yeah, it's but anyway, as far as support from operating systems, this is a USB class device, class compliant. So Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Android, Chrome, thin clients, zero clients, Pis, other embedded systems, Citrix, VMware, anything with a USB device port on it can be used. So yeah, a lot of people, a lot of the security researchers that are on YouTube that I've seen cover this device use it with Tails. So yeah, which is a double encryption, because you have encryption on the hardware plus encryption through Lux with Tails support, and then and then you have encryption over the network too. So you have actually 3 layers. This also has a read-only mode, and the reason for that is you can set that up as an administrator, or as a you can either, you have to set it up as an admin, but you can turn on read-only mode for admin and or user, and that configures this as read-only. So you can copy files to it, give the PIN and the device to other people, and the only thing they're allowed to do is to copy data from this. They can't store anything on it, which is kind of a handy feature if you're trying to disseminate information securely in an organization. Also, as we mentioned, it has brute force protection. The warranty on this is 3 years, and they offer, as part of that, lifetime technical support. So yeah, you get warranty for 3 years on the hardware, but you can ask questions about it anytime you want. It also has an Autolock feature. If some USB ports will, when you do when you unmount the drive, it will reset. And so it will auto lock at that point. Other machines, when you pull the device out of the USB port, it will lose power, and that will reset. You'll notice momentarily it goes to red before it loses power on the power down. So yeah, you can employ a manual drive reset if for some reason you forget your PIN. And you need to reset the device. Just realize that full reset erases everything, including the data that you had on it. Why don't we go look at some of the things that this can do, and then let's go find out how well it actually performs in real world tests. So I'm going to test this with a couple of different ways. I'm going to put it through the benchmarks, but that isn't always telling, because you need to use the device the way you're planning to do it. And so I think what I'll do is push it through the Blackmagic design disk test, and that will actually measure it with workloads that simulate different kinds of video files. And that might be something that I would be wanting to do, would be to copy video files onto this. So that, I can reuse them or transfer them to another machine securely. So yeah. All right. So let's go do that. So on this device, what we can do is you press the, I don't know if I can hold this steady enough, but we'll see. So it'll start blinking red, and now it's waiting for me to enter in my PIN. So I will do that, but I'm not going to show it to you. Once you've successfully entered your PIN, you hit the key button again, and it will switch over to unlocked. Now I can plug the device in. If I don't plug it in a certain amount of time, it will automatically auto lock. Okay, so let's look at the benchmark results here. But let me explain my key to you first. So Data C1, that's the new drive. That's the Pro+C. Pro+2 is the older iStorage device that I tested earlier when I was looking at the eCrypt FS file system. So this one is the only difference. Well, there's several differences between the two. The firmware is different between them, And the processors, I would assume, are different, as well as this is obviously a USB Type-C, and this one is a USB Type-A. Then I have a Samsung C drive. That S-disk failed, and I fixed the problem and restarted it and reran it over here. So we won't be looking at any data from that one, but this is a SD card on a Transcend adapter. So yeah, that's what that is. I use those all the time. So in order to program the ARM devices, you obviously have to have a SD card of some kind in order to even load up an NVMe that might be attached to them. So okay, let's talk about the random read first. So remember, these are the random read are designed as an IOPS test. These are small block file loads. In this particular scenario on the random reads at 4K block sizes, the older Pro 2 does better than the newer C1. And then the Samsung comes in third, and finally the SD card dead last. Winner. So 4301 IOPS is what the Pro 2 got. That's the older device. That's this one, the black one, and that's the one that has the USB-A connector on it. So yeah, so it did quite well in this short block test. The next one is this one, which is the Pro+C, which is second place, but it's not that far apart. And then this little one here is really tiny. This is a Samsung 256 gig device. It uses USB-A or C, uses USB-C. Its security mechanism is to put a wire through so you can't. So this doesn't have any encryption on it, is basically what I'm telling you. Neither does this. So they're doing quite well comparison into ones that are not encrypted at all. Pretty amazing. This is MB per second. And this time the SAMC does better here. Then we have the random write, which is also IOPS. That's starting the IOPS test. And SAMC does well here on remember, small block sizes. On sequential reads, we get a completely different story. Now, remember what I told you. I don't know, maybe you forgot, but I will tell you again. This is a large block test, and typically devices that do well in large block do not do well in small block. So yeah, when you're doing sequential reads, you are writing this as a stream of data, and so the device is going to naturally fall into whatever Linux has defined as the block device for the file system when it writes. So yeah, you can see it they weren't kidding. The iStorage people were not kidding that drive is faster. It is not only faster, it is way faster than the Pro tool. So yeah, and then you run it, there's a sequential read for IOPS, and of course it has a corresponding score. 42,859. Sequential writes, again, it does really well in that test. The SAMC doesn't really come close. It's about, I would say, 2/3 of the speed, and then the Pro tool, yeah. This is the kind of difference that I saw in using the device as well. And then we have this one, which is sequential write on the IOPS. So yeah, again, yeah, the IOPS is 30,000 versus 7,900 for the Pro 2 and 2,100. Again, it's running at about 66% of the speed of the. You would think that the encrypted one would be slower, but they've obviously put a really decent processor on this thing. So yeah, it got 4 out of the 10 tests, 8 tests. Let's look at the results from the Blackmagic test. So we're going to start out with the Pro+C. As you can see, the write speed is about 225.6, and then Blackmagic will fill in this chart to tell you what codecs and what resolutions you can safely record and read with, so and from your editor or whatever. So yeah, and now it's doing the read side of things, and we're all done. So we filled in the test. It's 227.8 on the write for the Pro+C, 266.2 on the read, and then the software fills out this chart. So we can do Blackmagic RAW, 8K, DCI, 24 frames a second. ProRes is going to be a lot heavier, so 2160, 60 frames a second there. So that's 4K. And that goes clear across the board. Now, H.264 will actually let us handle up to 8K. I don't think I'd want to handle those. 60 frames per second. That's a pretty large file. Yeah, about 70. Let me just advance this because that's going to take a long time to get over there. So this time that the Pro 2 drive will only handle 24 frames 2K, and that's both for Blackmagic RAW and ProRes 422HQ high quality mode. H.264 again is able to handle all the way up to 8K, 60 frames a second. Advance to the answer. So we have 101.8 on the write, 361.9 on the read. That's pretty good. It is actually able to read 12K, 24 frames per second. And but practical use, RAW is 2160, 25 frames a second. And same with ProRes HQ. Now, yeah, you can read it, but what's the point of reading it if you can't write it? I mean, if you're editing that film, that particular piece of video, that might be difficult. But H.264 is able to get out to 8K, 60 frames a second, which is really good. I'll give you my final thoughts. After I've been using the device for over a month, I use it to boot into Tails. I have a persistent file store that I normally install on it. And I've been able to use that, and it works great. It works absolutely great. I can, any x86 machine that I have, I can just plug it in and boot, and I'm ready to go. I can take my files with me, and no matter where I'm at, I have a copy of the work that I'm doing. It's encrypted, and it's safe. So I really like that about the device. It's also, as you saw from the benchmarks, very fast. I don't have to lug around something that's as fragile as a NVMe, for example. So these things, yeah, I don't particularly recommend you go out and run it over with your car. But if you accidentally do that, if you drop it, and you'll run over it, your drive and your data will still be there for you. So with that, I really enjoyed using this device, and I'm continuing to use the device every day. You do have AES acceleration on most of your CPUs, but I would prefer not to have that load on the CPU at all. So this is really nice. It totally offloads all of that. So thank you, iStorage. Thank you so much for sending this for me to review. And I hope to see you all very soon. And bye for now.